Is the last of a 4-day Majaz series at IEC Hussaini recited by Hujjatul Islam Moulana Rizwan Rizvi of New Jersey. We would like to get started with recitation of Salam by Brother On, followed by Marsi recited by Brother Riaz Naqvi. Please recite aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajan.
Easy.
Okay, no. Oh my God, there.
Turn the camera on?
Yeah, the camera's on.
Okay.
You can get started. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ala Muhammad bulantar salawat. Allah. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Oh, Karbala, wo Sham mein ghariba, wo tiragi, wo Zainab وہ حفاظت قیام کی آیا وہ صبا قریب قیام شاہ بیٹی علی کی غیظ بے سورے برس بڑھی التی نقاب چہرے سے اپنے سنوارنے پیش نگاہ زینب مظلوم تھے علی ہر چند صابرہ کی بہار بنت فاطمہ بے ساختہ زبان پر یہ فریاد آ گئی زینب نے کہا باپ کے قدموں سے لپٹ کر اب آئے ہو بابا جب لٹ گیا پردیس میں اماں کا بھرا گھر اب آئے ہو بابا بابا اگر آنا ہی تھا خالق کی رضا سے وقت کہاتے جب باپ کے چلو میں تھا خون علی اصغر اب آئے ہو بابا جب بھائی کا سر کرتا تھا میں دیکھ رہی تھی حضرت کو صدا دی سر کھولے ہوئے روتی تھی میں خیمے کے در پر اب آئے ہو بابا جب لوگ بچا لے گئے لاش شہداء کے حق اپنا جیتا کے بس ایک تانے شبیر تا پامالی کی زد پر اب آئے ہو بابا جب بالی سکی نہ کے گوہر چھینے گئے تھے لگتے تھے تماچے حسرت سے مجھے دیتی تھی بالوئے مستر اب آئے ہو بابا جب شام کے قضات ہمیں لوٹ رہے تھے خیموں کو جلا کے آپ آ گئے ہو تے تو نہ چھلتی میری چادر اب آئے ہو بابا کیا آپ نے فردوس سے یہ دیکھا نہ ہوگا کیا حشر بپا تھا جب پشت سے بھی مار کی کھینچا گیا بستر اب آئے ہو بابا ایک رات کے مہمان ہے پھر قید محمد وعلى محمد بلندر صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اسلوب امام زمانہ بآواز بلندر صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
حضرات، میں تحت اللفظ میں مرثیہ پڑھنے کی سعادت حاصل کر رہا ہوں. یہ مرثیہ شہزادے علی اکبر علیہ السلام سے منسوب ہے اور اس کو محترم قائم جعفری صاحب مرحوم نے رقم کیا ہے. دعا ہے کہ اس مرثیے کی تلاوت سے ان کو درجات میں بلندی عطا ہو. فاتحہ. صلوات
اللهم صل على
محمد وآل محمد. توجہ کی التماس ہے. دیکھیں فرماتے ہیں کہ جذبہ دل کا ہے ممنون ریاضت کا شباب، وجہ عالم ہوا فہم و فراست کا شباب، دل بری میں نظر آتا ہے قیامت کا شباب، رخ ممدوح کا ایک عکس ہے جنت کا شباب، کہاں لفظوں سے نمایاں ہوئی تنویر شباب، کب مصور سے بنائی گئی تصویر شباب، ناز و انداز کی محفل میں جب آتا ہے شباب، ایک سیلاب سا جذبات میں لاتا ہے شباب، دھڑکنوں کو دل سادہ کی جگاتا ہے شباب، کم تری کا ہر ایک احساس مٹاتا ہے شباب. اور بیت ملاحظہ کرے کہ جھنجھنا اٹھتا ہے انسان کا ہر تار نفس، اور بڑھ جاتی ہے اس عہد میں رفتار نفس، اور بڑھ جاتی ہے اس عہد میں احساس نفس. نگہ دہر نے دیکھا ہے کہاں ایسا جوان، جس کے قدموں کی نشاں دیکھتی تھی کاہ کشاں، اس کی ہستی میں سمٹ آیا محبت کا جہاں، تھا یہ بھرپور جوانی میں مکمل انسان، عشق کی روح رواں حسن کا پیکر سمجھے، کیا تعجب جو انہیں لوگ پیمبر سمجھے، کیا تعجب کہ انہیں لوگ پیمبر سمجھیں. اس کا چہرہ ہے کہ وہ شمس کی آئینہ رخی، اس کی زلفیں ہیں کہ واللیل کی آیات جلی، اس کے رخسار میں والفجر کی ہے عکس کشی، اس کے رخسار میں ہے والفجر کی ہے عکس کشی، خد موضوع پہ قیامہ کی ہے پرچھائی پڑی. اور بیت دیکھیں کہ حل عطا اس کے گھرانے کے لیے آیا ہے، حل عطا اس کے گھرانے کے لیے آیا ہے، خلکفا اس ہی کی اجداد کا سرمایہ ہے، خلکفا اس کے ہی اجداد کا سرمایہ ہے. اور بند ملاحظہ کریں کہ اس کی ایک ادا میں تھا رسولوں کا جلال، حسن اس کے عیاں حسن ازل کا تھا کمال، صدقے ہوتے تھے یہاں حضرت یوسف کا جمال، حشر تک اب نہیں ملنے کی کہیں ایسی مثال. اور دیکھیں بیت کہ علی اکبر تھے حقیقت میں پیمبر کا جواب، علی اکبر تھے حقیقت میں پیمبر کا جواب، اب نہیں ہے کہیں اس حسن کے پیکر کا جواب، اب نہیں ہے کہیں اس حسن کے پیکر کا جواب. اسی اکبر کو کہا جاتا ہے زینب کا جگر، یہ جواں حضرت شبیر کا ہے نور نظر، اس کی آنکھوں میں سمٹا ہوا حسن گل تر، مطلع آل محمد کا ہے روشن یہ قمر، مطلع آل محمد کا ہے روشن یہ قمر، دیکھنے والوں کی آنکھوں میں محبت آئی، سال 18واں آیا تو قیامت آئی، سال 18واں آیا تو قیامت آئی۔ اور دیکھیں بند کہ صبح جب آنکھ کھلی اور ہی کچھ تھا نقشہ، زندگی چاہتا تھا پانی کا ایک خطرہ، آئی شبیر کے خیمے سے آتش کی جو صدا، علی اکبر کی جوانی نے تڑپ کر دیکھا، الخما نرغے آدا میں نظر آتی تھی، الخما نرغے آدا میں نظر آتی تھی، تشنگی اور بھی تشنا کو تڑپاتی تھی۔ 3 دن سے تھا جو شبیر پہ عنقا پانی، ننھے بچوں نے بھی پایا نہ ذرا سا پانی، علی اصغر نے سکینہ نے نہ دیکھا پانی، الخما میں نظر آتا تھا تڑپتا پانی، وقت کی باہوں میں جب عصر کا ہنگام آیا، وقت کی باہوں میں جب عصر کا ہنگام آیا، حق پرستوں کے لیے زیست کا پیغام آیا، حق پرستوں کے لیے زیست کا پیغام آیا، جو وفادار تھے وہ شان وفا لے کے گئے، جتنے اصحاب تھے وہ لطف خزا لے کے گئے، طاعت حق میں رہے حق کی رضا لے کے گئے، ہر قدم فاطمہ زہرا کی دعا لے کے گئے، ہر قدم فاطمہ زہرا کے دعا لے کے گئے۔ اور بیت ملاحظہ کریں کہ ان بزرگوں کے لیے حکم ایجاب آ ہی گیا، بعد ان کے علی اکبر کا شباب آ ہی گیا، بعد ان کے علی اکبر کا شباب آ ہی گیا۔ اور بند دیکھیں کہ کس زباں سے تمہیں مرنے کی اجازت دے دوں، رن میں جانے کی میں کس طرح سے رخصت دے دوں، جان و دل اور تمناؤں کی دولت دے دوں، تم ہو تصویر نبی کیسے یہ نعمت دے دوں، تم ہو تصویر نبی کیسے یہ نعمت دے دوں، تم مصر ہو تو چلو اہل حرم سے پوچھیں، پالنے والوں کے بھی دیدہ نم سے پوچھیں، علی اکبر کو لیے خیمے میں آئے مولا، حسرت و یاس سے سب اہل حرم تھے یکجا، کہا شہنے کے پھوپھی سے ذرا مل لو بیٹا، بڑے ارمانوں سے زینب نے تمہیں ہے پالا، سوچتا ہوں کہ کدھر جائے گی زینب دکھیا، سوچتا ہوں کہ کدھر جائے گی زینب دکھیا، تم اگر مر گئے مر جائے گی زینب دکھیا، تم اگر مر گئے مر جائے گی زینب دکھیا، آیا زینب کی طرف دل کو سنبھالے وہ جری، دل میں ایک درد لیے آنکھوں میں اشکوں کی نمی، بحر تسلیم جھکا آئی قیامت کی گھڑی، دیکھتی رہ گئی حسرت سے بھتیجے کو پھوپھی، کہا 18 برس کے علی اکبر تم ہو، کہا 18 برس کے علی اکبر تم ہو، آل اطہار میں ہم شکل پیمبر تم ہو، آل اطہار میں ہم شکل پیمبر تم ہو۔ اور بند ملاحظہ کریں کہ بیاہ کا دل میں تھا ارمان میرے فرخندہ سیر، خانہ آبادی کی لب پر تھی دعا شام و سحر، اس تصور سے کہ لگ جائے نہ دشمن کی نظر،
پھونکتے رہتے تھے ہم ناد علی پڑھ پڑھ کر، کس طرح تم میں تھے جذبات خدا ہی جانے، کیسے کیسے تھے خیالات خدا ہی جانے، پردہ خیمے کا اٹھا خیمے سے باہر نکلے، حسرتوں کا لیے سینے میں سمندر نکلے، تھام کر ہاتھوں سے اپنا دل مضطر نکلے، خانداں بھر کی دعائیں لیے اکبر نکلے، کہا شبیر نے یہ تازہ ستم ہے بابا، کہا شبیر نے یہ تازہ ستم ہے بابا، پھوپھی اماں کے لیے، پھوپھی اماں کے لیے اور یہ غم ہے بابا، پھوپھی اماں کے لیے اور یہ غم ہے بابا۔ اور دیکھیں شاعر نے کس طرح منظر کشائی کی ہے کہ عازم جنگ ہوئے کھینچ لی اکبر نے حسام، عازم جنگ ہوئے کھینچ لی اکبر نے حسام کا، کیا کہا شبیر نے پھر آخری رخصت کو سلام، مضطرب ہو گئے ایک بار شہ عرش مقام، منقلب ہو گیا سینے میں محبت کا نظام، اسب بڑھتا تھا تو تھراتا تھا ہر خندہ و بدن، اسب بڑھتا تھا تو پھر تو تھراتا تھا ہر جزو بدن، اور فرماتے تھے حسرت سے کہ محلن محلن، اور فرماتے تھے حسرت سے کہ محلن محلن، یا علی کہہ کے جو میدان میں آیا غازی، پھر گئی آنکھوں میں ہر ایک کی تصویر نبی، جائزہ فوجوں کا لینے لگا مثل علی، لشکر اہل ستم میں ہوئی افراتفری، اور بیت ملاحظہ کریں کہ کہا آدھا اسے بتراؤ تو ارادہ کیا ہے، کہا آدھا سے بتلاؤ ارادہ کیا ہے، میں نبی کا ہوں نواسا مجھے سمجھا کیا ہے، میں نبی کا ہوں نواسا مجھے سمجھا کیا ہے، ظالموں تین شب و روز کا ہوں میں پیاسا، تم کو لڑنے گا مگر قصد کیا ہے تنہا، سورما جتنے ہیں وہ سامنے آ جائیں ذرا، سیدھا پہنچاؤں گا ان سب کو جہنم بخدا، میں ہوں ہم شکل نبی آؤ سنبھل کر لوگو، اس طرح لڑتے اگر لڑتے پیمبر لوگو، اس طرح لڑتے اگر لڑتے پیمبر لوگو۔ اور بند ملاحظہ کریں کہ شاہ والا تھے کھڑے دیکھتے رن کا منظر، عالم خوف میں سہمے ہوئے تھے جن و بشر، یہ جواں تیغ بخف ہو کے گزرتا تھا جدھر، بھاگتا ہی نظر آتا تھا یزیدی لشکر، شور آدھا میں ہوا فاتح خیبر آئے، شور آدھا میں ہوا فاتح خیبر آئے، کربلا چیخ اٹھی حیدر و صفدر آئے، کربلا چیخ اٹھی حیدر و صفدر آئے، بس یہ سننا تھا کہ فوجوں نے اسے گھیر لیا، نیزہ لے لے کے کھڑی ہوتے گئے سب آدھا، وار پر وار کیے جاتے تھے اہل کوفہ، شام کے ایک شخی نے تو غضب ہی ڈھایا، ہائے اس طرح ستمگار نے ماری برچھی، ہائے اس طرح ستمگار نے ماری برچھی، قلب ہم شکل پیمبر میں اتاری بھرچھی، کھا کے پھل بھرچی کا گھوڑے سے گرے جب اکبر، سانس رکنے لگی تھرانے لگے قلب و جگر، دیکھتے جاتے تھے رہ کے ادھر اور ادھر، کہتے جاتے تھے یہی ہاتھ رکھے سینے پر، چور زخموں سے ہوں اب شاہ ہدا ادرکنی، چور زخموں سے ہوں اب شاہ ہدا ادرکنی، دم نکلنے ہی کو ہے یا بتا ادرکنی، دم نکلنے کو ہے یا بتا ادرکنی، مضطرب ہو گئے دیکھا جو کلے جا چھلنی، خار بن کر چبھا احساس غریب الوطنی، چلی سینے ایسے کی پشت کی میں نیزے کی ینی، چلی سینے سے پے پشت نیزے کی ینی، خاک اور خون میں غلطاں ہوا نازک بدنی، سانس رکتی ہوئی چلتی تھی علی اکبر کی، جان یوں تن سے نکلتی تھی علی اکبر کی۔ اور آخری بند ہے کہ منہ پہ منہ رکھ کے کہا کہ بہانے لگے آنسو سرور، جب ضیا
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajil farajum. Before we get started, we have one brief announcement. Moulana Ali Raza Rizvi Sahib will be reciting Majalis for IC from this upcoming Tuesday through next Saturday. Today is the last of a 40 Majalis series at IEC Husseini, recited by Hujjatul Islam, Moulana Rizwan Rizvi of New Jersey, on the topic of Marifat Imam Zaman. On behalf of the IEC Husseini and Chicago community, we would like to give our most sincere thanks to Moulana for offering the recitation of Majalis during these ayam. We pray for him and his family's health and well-being, and pray that inshallah we will be able to form Majalis together in person in the future. Without further delay, I would like to welcome Moulana. Please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يمحو الله ما يشاء ويثبت وعنده أم الكتاب. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. As announced, this is the last of this series of majalis, the fourth one, which we've been discussing under the topic of Marifat of Imam Zamana. In the last 3 nights, tried to make sure that I utilize every single minute of my time, and I may have even gone over the allotted time, to try to squeeze in as many um, elements of the Marifat of Imam Zamana. Of course, this is a very big undertaking, and there are ashras that people have recited over this subject. This is not the first time. Many have addressed the life of Imam in a much better and profound manner than what I have been able to do so in the last couple of nights. And but it is a topic and a subject which in fact requires that we continue to mention and continue to discuss, because we don't want any rust settling on this discussion pertaining to Imam Zamana, especially with the younger generation, the future of Madhhab Tashayyur. Because a lot of time, things which we don't firmly believe in might lose their importance, and the future generations may think of it as fairy tales. Therefore, there's a concept which is associated with the ghaibat of our 12th Imam. And for that reason, I chose this verse from Surah Ra'ad, ayat number 39. A concept which is known in Madhhab Tashayyu as Bada. The ayat which I recited says, يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ. That Allah removes, obliterates, effaces whatever He wills, and He retains whatever He wills. With Him is the mother of the book, وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ, the book in which you will find all of the information. And that rests with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With that discussion of Bada, inshallah, which will be continuous throughout discussion tonight, which is also the conclusive discussion tonight that I want to come to a conclusion and bring it to an end, that we shared many riwayat in reference to Imam Zamana. But there's this one riwayat you might be wondering that I have not shared thus far, and I was not going to leave without sharing it. Now, this also has appeared in numerous different ways. The riwayat, of course, that I'm referring to is in reference to how the world will be filled with injustice. And when Imam does his zuhur, he will remove the injustice and he will fill it back with adl and equity. So riwayat has come in different ways. The one that I will recite is as follows, where Imam Ma'asum says, لَوْ لَمْ يَبْقَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا يَوْمٌ وَاحِدٌ. If only a day remains from the days of the world, لَطَوَّلَ اللَّهُ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ حَتَّى يَبْعَثَ رَجُلًا مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِي. Allah will prolong that day so long that a man from my Ahl Bayt rises. يَمْلَأُ الْأَرْضَ عَدْلًا وَقِسْطًا كَمَا مُلِعَتْ جَوْرًا وَظُلْمًا. This is in Mizan al-Hikmah. He will fill the earth with justice as it will be filled with oppression. Now with this riwayat, which as I said before, that's something which is not new. You have heard this riwayat before. Some thought that this hadith means to hasten the reappearance of Imam, we should help fill this world with injustice. Because the more the injustice, the sooner Imam will reappear. But we fail to look at the hadith and its words carefully. Look closely. The hadith uses the word zulman and not zaliman. Hadith says that يَمْلَأُ الْأَرْضَ عَدْلًا وَقِسْطًا كَمَا مُلِعَتْ جَوْرًا وَظُلْمًا. That it will be filled with zulm, not necessarily zalimin. There's a difference between the two. Because if we started corrupting the world to increase zalimin, which will then eventually increase zulm and oppression, that someone said, well, why not let it be the way it is? Don't do anything. let injustice prevail. So the more the injustice, the sooner Imam will reappear. The hadith does not say the word zulm, zalim, that increase as when this world will be filled with zalimeen. Rather, it said when the world will be filled with zulm. It only takes one oppressor to fill the entire earth with injustice and corruption. You don't need to have a lengthy list of corrupted zalimeen. Although, if we were to enumerate them, we will have a hard time counting all of the zalimeen that exist today in the world. One might argue, if I stop oppression, it's counterproductive, because hadith is definitely telling us that Imam will only reappear when this world is filled with injustice. So if I stop it, isn't it counterproductive to the return of Imam? What is the use? The sooner the world fills with injustice, the sooner Imam will return. That is a wrong understanding of it, of course. Logically, it does not make any sense. And rationally, we're not thinking when we say this. Don't worry about the results. That's not upon you. Even when the Prophet, he was sent for this mission, he was told on numerous occasions that, O Prophet, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. O Prophet, you do not guide whomever you wish to guide. It is Allah who guides those people. And that's what Prophet was saying, وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. All my duty is to convey the message, and the rest lies in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whomever he wants to provide guidance will be guided. So the dawr of Imam is divided into two major portions. One is the minor occultation, or ghaybat al-sughra, and the second portion is called major occultation, which is ghaybat al-kubra. Ghaybat al-sughra, of course, started after our 12th Imam led the funeral prayer of his father. Our 11th Imam, when he left this world in the year 260, Imam ﷺ, at that moment after leading the prayer, goes into this minor occultation. And until the death of the fourth deputy of Imam, it remained to be Ghaybat al-Sughra until the year 329. So about 69 years of Ghaybat al-Sughra. During this Ghaybat al-Sughra, although the Muslims could not see Imam, because it was only minor occultation, they could have seen him, but they would communicate with him through his deputies. Who were these four deputies that were selected one after another? First one of them was Uthman ibn Sa'id. Uthman ibn Sa'id was a man who was called as thiqah by both our 10th and 11th Imams. He performed all the last rituals of 11th Imam after his shahadat. And then that representation went from to his son Muhammad ibn Uthman. And after Muhammad ibn Uthman, it was transferred to Hussein ibn Rawh, to whom we address when we write the Arida. On the night of 15th of Shaban, when we perform that amal of writing the Ariza to Imam of our time, we address it to whom? We address it to Hussein ibn Rawh, that he's the one who is going to deliver this message to Imam ﷺ. So therefore, one reference in regards to this Ariza, we think that it has to be dropped into a body of water. That's preferable. But it is not a must that you must find a body of water where you can go ahead and drop. We've had issues here, especially in the United States, that if there's a lot of papers in which people have written their Ariza, and now you have to go ahead and find a water body where you can go ahead and drop them, that maybe it's not permissible, maybe it's not allowed. So what do we do? So, well, even if you write this Ariza and you don't drop it anywhere, writing of the Ariza is the important act, not dropping it into a body of water. The fact that you write is what is being recommended. The fact that you go ahead and ask Imam and plead to Imam for the struggles and the mushkilat that you're going through, that is what is being asked from you, to go ahead and do i'tiraf, acknowledge them, and write this letter. Whether you drop it or not, that doesn't really have any effect, because Imam the matn and the text of your what you have written reaches Imam. Today, you and I, we use this technology all the time when we send our text messages, we send emails. How quickly the days of fax, although fax is still being used, are, seem like olden days. Nowadays, people use email and text messaging. That are around the globe, across the globe. If you want to get the message across, you just send a text. And there are many different ways of sending a text. So with that said, the technology that you and I have, that if you want someone on the other side of the globe to read what we want to say in a matter of seconds, that here we type up this email, we press send, and there it arrives right away without any delay, and that person can read what we have written. Then you think Imam ﷺ does not have a better technology than that? So all you've got to do is write the letter, and it reaches Imam ﷺ without any delay. And lastly, Ali ibn Muhammad Samri. He was the last appointed deputy of our 12th Imam. And then after the year 329 Hijri, when the major occultation commenced, the special deputation of Imam was terminated after the wafat of the fourth one. If anybody during this period, in the period of major occultation, considers to be a mediator or a deputy who's directly gotten this deputation from Imam, then according to the declaration of Imam Zamana himself, the claimer is a liar. So therefore, we believe that all of the scholars and the mujtahideen and ulama are the deputies of Imam Zamana, but not a specific deputy like these four were. These four individuals, Uthman ibn Syed, Muhammad ibn Uthman, Hussein ibn Raw, and Ali ibn Muhammad al-Samri. These four were direct representatives. But then there isn't any direct representation of Imam in the major occultation. But these ulama and these fuqaha, they definitely possess the indirect deputation of Imam Zamana, and they are their representatives. Because this is according to the matn and the nas and the kalam of our 11th Imam. When he mentions and he says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْفُقَهَاءِ صَاعِنًا لِنَفْسِهِ حَافِظًا لِدِينِهِ مُخَالِفًا لِحَوَاهُ مُطِيعًا لِأَمْرِ مَوْلَاهُ فَلِلْعَوَامِ أَنْ يُقَلِّدُوهُ. And the hadith continues by saying that there will not be many. There will only be a handful of people like this in every era. And that's what we have. We only have a few, those who are at the top of the marja'iyat. What did Imam said, 11th Imam said? He said, فَرْجِعُوا إِلَىٰ رُوَاتِ حَدِيثِنَا. Return when you have affairs related to us, if you want to ask questions, to those who narrate our ahadith. And it's referring to these maraji. That the fuqaha are those, مَنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْفُقَهَاءِ صَائِنًا لِنَفْسِهِ, the one who's protector of his nafs. حَافِظًا لِدِينِهِ, the one who protects and provides this protection to the deen. How many instances do you find that the marja'iyat has protected the deen with their fatawa, with their stance over certain things over the years? And then the third, مُخَالِفًا لِحَوَاهُ مُطِيعًا لِأَمْرِ مَوْلَاهُ. It's an individual who goes against his whims and he's obedient to the amr of Mawla. فَلِلْعَوَامِ أَن يُقَلِّدُوا. When you find all of these attributes in this faqih, then it's appropriate, incumbent upon the people to go ahead and do what? يُقَلِّدُوه, do the taqleed of such an individual. So therefore, the concept of taqleed is mentioned here. So this is where we understand the duties of every Muslim in the time of Ghaibati Kubra. Number one is to be the caretakers of Islam. But of course, ayah number 122 of Surah Tawbah tells us that وَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ. Why not some people from the masses go and attain this knowledge, so then they come back and warn the people? And it's referring toward these fuqaha, these ulama, these maraji, these scholars. They're the caretakers of Islam. But it is a duty of every single individual. It is also our duty to pray for the safety of Imam and give sadaqah for his safety. Ask Allah to make Imam appear as soon as possible. Make dua faraj for Imam. That's what we recite after our salat. Wajib salat, it is recommended to recite this dua faraj, so that he may come and fill the earth with truth and peace. Number 4, whenever the name of 12th Imam is said, you should stand up, placing your right hand on top of your head, bow your head. You should also recite salawat after you hear his name. These are some of the recommendations that are mentioned, which I'm sure we have learned as kids growing up. These are the etiquettes that are taught to us. The moment the name of Imam Zamana comes, you stand up. That's why when you recite Dua Iftatah, you remain seated when the name of the Prophet comes and when the name of other Ma'sumin comes. But the moment the name of Imam Zamana comes, you stand up. When you're reciting the ziyarat, you recite the ziyarat of all 14 Ma'sumin, but only when you get to the name of Imam Zamana, you bow your head down and you place your head on your head. These are the etiquettes that all of us are taught from the time that we were brought up. The Holy Prophet said that if a person dies, and this is basically is the Marifat of Imam, the hasil of our discussion in the last few nights is that this is the hasil, this is the Marifat, this is the proper recognition of Imam. Not just that kitabi recognition of Imam, his biography. No, this is the way you pay respect as if he's right in front of you. Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that if someone dies without knowing the Imam of his time, that means without having the ma'rifat of the Imam of the time, his death is that of an unbeliever. Unbeliever. And I'm sure there are many such riwayat that we heard with different varieties in it. We must therefore carry out our duties to our 12th Imam, who is still alive and in ghaibat. Another duty of the Shias during the major occultation, which the Holy Imam have alluded to, is to question of being ready for the Savior. That are we preparing? What have we done to prepare? Hence, the first step of salvation is to recognize the Imam of the age. And then the second step is to prepare for the establishment of the just government of Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam is given this title of Muntazar. I explained it last night. Therefore, the ones who are waiting are called what? Muntazireen. And what does Muntazireen have to do? Preparing themselves for the appearance of Imam. Let's just look at this concept quickly before I get to the concept of Bada. The example of Muntazir, you and I, of that Imam Muntazir, is like the one who waits for a guest's arrival. Let's say someone in your family or friends called that and you invited them to come over your house for a dinner or something. And so you say, well, inshallah, next Sunday at this hour, we will wait for you. And then you confirm that inshallah you're coming because we're preparing food for you. They say yes. They give you confirmation that they're coming. And of course, you expect their arrival. So when all of this has been confirmed, and usually people do keep their promises, when all of this is confirmed, do you just remain idle sitting at home waiting for them without preparing yourselves? You've invited them for food. So at least go ahead and either order the food or have prepared the food or get it ready before the arrival of someone to your house. Although we try to keep our houses neat and clean, but still before the arrival of the guest, you see that in every household, usually there's this last check of cleaning things up, tidying things up. Just last time, just so that, before they come, they don't see that things are just laying around here and there. It is okay for us to see things laying around here and there, but not in front of the guest. This shows your preparation, that you're really expecting someone. Therefore, we cannot sit back and relax if we are amongst the Muntazireen of Imam. Here we're saying that we are the Muntazireen of Imam Muntazar, and then we don't do anything for it. We don't, in this case, that we were waiting for a guest to come, we were preparing the food, we were providing the food, we were cleaning the house, we were doing other things so that their arrival, their stay is smooth. and it's not full of hardship. But when it comes to the arrival of Imam, we're just sitting relaxed. Forget about the food, forget about cleaning of the place, cleaning the place from corruption, providing ourselves with that much needed cleanliness, so that we show ourselves that we are pure from outside and from inside. Someone had jokingly said, and hopefully this was just jokingly, that we have descended so much as Shias, that some of us may even request Imam, please reappear on a weekend, because weekdays we're very busy. I have 9 to 5 job, I have work, I have other chores that I have to run during the day, kids have school, so we won't be able to welcome you during the weekdays. Someone said it out of joke, but isn't that the reality, how we are heedless? When you don't remember him on daily basis, then yes, you are heedless. Shia, or the Shia of Imam, or Shiyan Ali rather, should devout and should be linked with the eminence of Imam when he's in this occultation. This is something which has to be developed. Their hearts and souls should be filled with the love and the affection for him. And that's why you see the ayat of Quran where the Holy Prophet said, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is quoting, the ayat is from Allah, but in the words of the Holy Prophet, who says, In kuntum tuhibbun Allah fattabi'uni. That if you claim to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then fattabi'uni, then follow me. Here we understand the concept of love emerges from the concept of following. You can't just say, well, we love Imam, and then you don't follow what he's saying or the directions that he has provided. Forget about following the directions that Imam has provided. Sometimes we go against the directions that Imam has provided. We're in the opposite side of it, neglecting it completely. So their thoughts should be devoted. They should be devoted to his service, and the desire should be to meet him. If that desire is there, all those stories that I recited in the past few nights, to meet Imam, and how Imam said, you don't have to do these things. We will come and meet you if you are that devout to us. Their prayer should be to ask for the blessing of Allah to be showered upon Imam, and their supplication should be for their salvation. Their existence should be one welded and fused unit, and their life should blaze for the love of Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. All of these things have to come together. So when we're speaking about our 12th Imam, there are certain signs that have been addressed. Of course, the concept of tawqeet and giving a specific time is something which has been declined. Ma'sumin have said, those who la nuwaqqat, we do not give a specific time for the reappearance of Imam. And if someone claims to provide you with this specific time for the reappearance of Mahdi, then that person is a liar, kadhab. Don't pay attention, don't pay heed to that person. But along with not providing the time, Ma'sumin have provided different incidents and signs through which we can recognize that the ghaibat is about to end and zuhur is approaching closer and closer. So the reason that it is kept hidden, I mentioned it, but further to elaborate further on that point as to why it has not been muhaddad or appointed or specifically mentioned, because guess what? It's not just you and I, the followers and the lovers of Imam, who are waiting for him. It is also those who are the enemies of Imam. They're waiting for him as well. In fact, their determination might be stronger than ours, because they know for sure that he will return. And so Imam ﷺ's arrival could be in jeopardy if the time was given specifically, because these people who are the enemies, they will prepare themselves better than you and I would prepare ourselves as the followers and the lovers of Imam. They will have enough time to go ahead and prepare themselves. If Imam does not come without telling and catches them off guard, otherwise they'll be able to prepare obstacles and hurdles and place them in the path of Imam to just further delay the concept of filling this earth with justice, when it will be filled with injustice. So these are some of these signs. In reality, it's talking about the events that will take place in future. When we study the ahadith regarding the signs and confirm the authenticity of these ahadith, they're narrated by infallible Masum. So many riwayat have been mentioned by infallible Masum, infallible Imams rather, Masum Imams, that we go ahead and look at these riwayat in our books because some of them could be questionable. So how can a riwayat be questionable when it's narrated from Imam? Well, thing is, there were a lot of people who were fabricating ahadith. Therefore, we never claimed for our books to be sahih, absolutely without any flaws. So the four main books that we have, from whom we derive the laws after Quran, the books of ahadith, we have Al-Kafi, we have Istabsar, we have Man La Yahdaruhu Al-Faqih, and we have Tahdhib Al-Ahkam. Of course, none of these books have the word Sahih before them. Like the Ahl Sunnah have their Sihah Sitta, which says Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sahih Matalan Jami Tirmidhi, Sahih Masalan Sunan al-Nasa'i, and so on and so forth. Ibn Majah and Abi Dawud. They have the word Sahih before the names of the book, which tells you what? That everything is Sahih in there. There's no doubt about it. Of course, that is not the truth. Even their own scholars have gone ahead and done the tahleel of the riwayat in those books and called them to be what? Weak. So this word Sahih is really not Sahih to be upon these books. But we've never placed these names before our books because we know that there are riwayat in there which are, probably false and probably not authentic. So then why are these riwayat there? I got this understanding from one of the greatest scholars of our time, Marhum Allama Dishan Hada Jawadi. He explains it. He said the reason Muhammad ibn Yaqub Qulayni or Sheikh Tusi or Sheikh Saduq, when they compile these books, or for example, Allama Majlisi in Biharul Anwar, the largest book of ahadith, when they were compiling these ahadith, they were just collecting akhbar from all directions so that nothing gets lost. And then he said, the example of it is, and those who've grown, who were brought up in India and Pakistan, they can relate to this example. कि जब इंसान बाजार से कोई चीज़ खरीद के लाता है, मसलन दाल चावल कोई आप चीज़ खरीद के लाए और बिलफर्ज आप लेके आ रहे थे, वो थैली जो है वो फट गई और वो दाल चावल गिर गया. अगर वो दाल चावल जो भी आप लेके आ रहे थे, मसलन दाल लेके आ रहे थे, वो ज़मीन पे गिर गई और वो बजरी और मिट्टी के साथ मिक्स हो गई. अब रोड पे आप ये नहीं करेंगे बैठ के उसको छानबीन करेंगे, बल्कि आप वो सारी की सारी चीज़ उठा लेंगे, उसमें कचरा भी आ जाएगा, घर लेके आएंगे और उसमें से दाल में से कचरे को अलग कर देंगे ताकि आप सिर्फ और सिर्फ दाल को पकाएं. So therefore you clean, the process of cleaning is when you come back home, not on the road. That's what these ulama did. They collected everything they had got that was associated to Imam Masum. And then later on, our fuqaha, the ulama that came, they went ahead and spoke about these ahadith, only taking those which are authentic. So that's why we find that there are narrations regarding the reappearance of Imam Zamana. Some could be relied upon and some may not be so reliable. When that is the case, there's a concept of Bada that comes into play. To answer these queries, rather, that will these events definitely take place that are being mentioned at the signs? The concept is the belief of the topic of Bada. The appearance after being hidden is only in respect to mankind. That's what Bada is. To something to appear after it was hidden for time being. That is only for you and I, and cannot be applicable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because nothing is hidden from him. Otherwise, it would mean that God was, for example, na'udhu billah, unaware of something which is impossible. And Quran also says that nothing is hidden from Allah. Inna Allah la yakhfa alayhi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama. Nothing is hidden from Allah in this earth or in the sky. So from here, the concept of bada, or something becoming apparent after it being hidden, cannot be associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because He is the one who said, وَبَدَعَ لَهُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يَكُونُوا يَحْتَسِبُونَ. That and there will appear to them from Allah what they had never reckoned, what they have never even thought of and taken into account. Similarly, we can deduct from various verses and narrations that some righteous actions can change and alter the course of our lives. The sustenance that we receive, the age, for example, and make life prosperous, such as giving sadaqah and being kind to others, sila rahim, being kind to the parents, istighfar, tawbah, being thankful after a favor and paying back the trust that belongs to people. All of these things could do what? Could increase your sustenance, could increase your lifespan, although your life may have been written a certain amount. On the contrary, there are actions which can change the course of your life for bad. That you do certain things, it decreases your lifespan, for example. It removes the barakat from your house. Another time, another discussion in reference to Quran. There's a beautiful hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib والسلام, where he says that the house in which Quran is recited and Allah is remembered, takthuru barakatuhu, barakat increase. Tahzurhu al-malaika, malaika come down to this house. And tudhi'u li ahli as-sama'i kama tudhi'u al-kawakib li ahli al-ard, and it shines for the inhabitants of the heavens the way the stars shine for the inhabitants of the earth. So when we look up on the sky, we see the stars shining. When the inhabitants of heaven look down onto the earth, these houses are shining. And on the contrary, in house lam yuthkar fihi azza wa jal wa lam yuqra'u fihi al-Quran, and Quran is not recited and Allah is not remembered, taqillu barakatuhu, barakat decrease. Tahjuruhul malaika, malaika refrain from coming to such houses. Tahdurhu shayateen, and shayateen gain access to such houses. So these are the effects of certain amal of ours that could happen. So signs have been divided into two parts. Signs of the reappearance of Imam. There's some conditional signs and matters, and there's some definite signs. Sixth Imam said, call them to be definite and indefinite. So the issue of Bada is also related to the appearance of Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraju Sharif in at least about 4 different ways. Number one is the conditional and the indefinite signs. Experts in this area, those who have concluded this, that except for those signs which have been mentioned explicitly in the ahadith that will take place definitely, rest of the signs, they're conditional. Aside from those definite signs, the rest might change or not happen altogether if it is the intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yamhullahu wa Allah establishes that He wishes, or He removes whatever He wants to. In other words, they fall in the changing tablet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for example, if some sort of devastation is supposed to descend from the skies, but has been mentioned as a conditional sign in the reappearance of Imam, it might change its course due to the supplications of the believers, due to the du'as of the believers, and might be delayed or may not even take place at all. Number 2, signs of reappearance and definite affairs, things that will definitely take place. And there's no doubt about these things. These are definite signs. There are about 5 things that have been mentioned as the definite signs of the reappearance of Imam, that if these 5 things happen, then yes, the zuhur of Imam will definitely take place soon. What are these 5? One of them is Khuruj Sufyani from Sham, the rise of Sufyani from Balad Sham, Khuruj Yamani min al-Yaman, Qiyam of Syed Khurasani, Qatl of Nafs Zakiya between Maqam and Rukn in Khana Kaaba, and this sayha, this loud sound which will be heard all over the place from the skies, بأن الحق فيه, in reference to Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. These are the 5 signs that have been mentioned. Now there are many other signs along with it that are mentioned, which I, of course, won't have time to get into them. But I'll quickly just translate what those signs are. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib said there are 10 signs of the reappearance. He said flags will be raised in the city of Kufa. Masajid and the places of worship will be abandoned. People will refrain from going to Hajj. Khorasan will sink. It will rain stones in the city of Khorasan. Comet or meteoroids, falling stars will appear. Stars will come together. Corruption and civil wars, persecution, grand theft, and mass destruction. We can actually say that many of these things have happened. Grand theft, mass destruction, persecution of innocent people all over the world, corruption which prevails, civil wars taking place. You're seeing comet, you're seeing meteoroids, seeing falling stars. You've seen how masajid have been abandoned. You've seen that people refrain from going to Hajj. Of course, this year it was because of pandemic, but in general, all of these things are happening. Flags will be raised in the city of Kufa and many such other things. In fact, there are such pinpoint descriptions given from Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib in this reference. He said, when you see the black flags rising, hold on to the earth and do not move your hands and feet. Black flags you saw in the recent past, ISIS, when they were raising their flags, the black flags which had La ilaha illallah on it. He said, Imam said that these people, their hearts will be stern like iron. They will call themselves to be the people of state. They were trying to establish what? A state within a state. They called themselves to be khilafat, right? There was this khilafat that they were trying to establish. So we find that these are the specific signs. Some of them have actually happened. We have seen some of them. But those 5 that I mentioned are something which is mutawatir, that have happened over and over again. So, well, Imam, that was asked by some people, that what if some of these signs don't happen? For example, the sign of Sufyani, is it for sure or is it not? This is where Imam talks about the concept of Bada. He said Bada, in the belief of Shia, means the appearance of something in a certain way which we thought would happen otherwise, neither change in the knowledge of Allah nor unlikely discovery for Allah. Therefore, Bada means our ignorance and not Allah's ignorance. Na'udhu billah. Bada in the creation is like the abolishment of a divine law. Our brothers in Ahl Sunnah, they disagree with this law. For example, we thought a law to be permanent, yet after some time it was changed. Of course, this doesn't mean that the lawmaker regrets or is ignorant, because it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, certain condition rise up which caused it to change the law. Sort of like how, just to on a lower scale, sometimes physicians, they will go ahead and prescribe something for a patient, and after their well-being or they improve, they change the medication, or they say, well, don't take this medication anymore. In fact, this medication now is going to be harmful to you. Just in this pandemic, how many different recommendations that you have seen from all over. So this concept of Bada, which our brothers in Ahl Sunnah disagree with, is it a concept which is, first of all, we don't think that Quran is a book of tafsil and everything is in it, but we'll give you some examples from Quran to understand that it is absolutely a Quranic concept. For example, we thought that the command of Allah for Hazrat Ibrahim was to sacrifice Hazrat Ismail when he showed him in his dream. But that was not true. Allah changed, or later the intention of Allah, should be said, became apparent to us when he replaced Hazrat Ismail with an animal. His plan was to test Ibrahim والسلام, not to kill his son. But initially the dream said what? Anni azbahuka, I'm slaughtering you. What is your opinion? So we thought Prophet Ibrahim thought that he was supposed to sacrifice and kill his son, but God had different plan from the very beginning. So this is where someone like you and I would say, well, we thought this was going to happen, but then something else happened. Did something change? Did Allah have change of hearts? No, Allah already knew it from before. We thought that Allah's commitment with Hazrat Musa والسلام, was for 30 nights or 30 days. وَوَعَدْنَا مُوسَى 30 لَيْلَةً. We promised him 30 days, 30 nights. But later it transpired, Allah requested or made him stay for 10 more nights, making it to be 40. وَأَتْمَمْنَاهَا بِعَشْرٍ فَتَمَّ مِيقَاتُ رَبِّهِ 40 لَيْلَةً. So originally Quran mentions that we called Hazrat Musa for 30 nights. But then 10 more were added. So change of hearts? No. That was the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the very beginning. But he showed it in a way that we thought that it was 30 nights initially, then it became 40. We thought that the Qibla of Muslims will always be Baytul Maqdas. That's where the direction Muslims used to pray in their entire life during the stay in Mecca, and then the initial few years in the city of Medina. That's why when they switched it from Baytul Maqdas, they had to turn 180 degrees because Medina is situated between Palestine, where Baytul Maqdas is, and Makkatul Mukarramah. In between, in a sense that there's 180 degrees between the two. So we thought that they were always going to be praying in direction of Baytul Maqdas, because of course Baytul Maqdas does not belong to any other person or any other group of people, as Jews claim that it was theirs. Hazrat Dawood, Hazrat Suleiman, they're the important figures of Baytul Maqdas. But the verse was revealed after Muslims were mocked, which made it apparent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always wanted Kaaba to be the direction of the worship. فَلَنُوَلِّيَنَّكَ قِبْلَةً تَرْضَاهَا. We will surely turn you to a qibla of your liking. With the signs of the wrath of Allah were obvious on the people of Hazrat Yunus. And Hazrat Yunus was satisfied that his nation will be destroyed because of their disbelief. He left. But people brought faith and became believers. And the wrath of Allah never came upon them. Quran says, إِلَّا قَوْمَ يُونُسَ لَمَّا آمَنُوا كَشَفْنَا عَنْهُمْ عَذَابَ الْخِزْيِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Except the people of Jonah. When they believed, we removed the punishment of disgrace in this life of this world, in the life of this world. So this was something, Hazrat Yunus, Nabi of Allah, thought, and that's it. My qawm is doomed. They're not paying attention to me. Azab won't come as long as I'm with them. He left. But Azab never came. With these examples, it is apparent what Shia belief of Bada really means. It doesn't mean that God, na'uzubillah, is ignorant or has lack of knowledge, since Allah knows from the beginning of what Hazrat Ismail, that he will not be killed. The period of the munajat of Hazrat Musa will be 40 nights. The permanent qibla of the Muslimin will be Kaaba, and the people of Yunus والسلام, will not be destroyed. This was always in the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, we saw the unexpected because we weren't expecting it to be that way. So Bada in this meaning has many educational effects. So what's the use of this Bada then? So one is that insan should always be hopeful of change of events. Otherwise, nothing will change. It's going to remain like this and we're going to be continuously suffering. No, change of conditions. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Yes, Allah does not change the state of a people when they themselves don't stand up to change and bring about the change. I know I'm running out of my time. I want to conclude this discussion. It actually reinvigorates the spirit of reliance and tawakkul upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we doesn't become captive of the apparent situation, that we lose hope. No, never lose hope. Bada is actually infusing hope in you and removing hopelessness from you. And his belief on the unseen and the power of the Almighty increases. What? We thought this is how it's going to happen, but Allah changed it altogether. So what does that do? That increases that the power of Almighty that we thought is beyond that. With repentance, sadaqah, munajat, dua, one tries to change the path of events and turn away from the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are verses in Quran that annul out the previous ruling. One of the furthermore proofs of this concept of Bada, that did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, question is hypothetically being asked, if Allah was going to abolish this, why did he even place it initially? If you and I make a law, for example, that the law says that you cannot go on red light, and you must move on the green light. But after a few years, we changed the law. So no, you can go on red light, for example, if there's an emergency, or if there's certain other conditions, or we're changing the colors altogether, or many such laws that humans have made and then they have abolished. It's understandable because us humans, we are naqisul aql. So with this naqis aql, we will make laws which might be insufficient, and later on we'll have to change them. But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why is he giving us a law when he's going to go ahead and abolish it later on? This is where the concept of Bada becomes much more clear. Would you then raise point our fingers towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that na'udhu billah, he didn't know initially and then he changed the ruling? The example is Surah Mujadila, ayat number 12 and ayat number 13. First, the rule came down which ordered the people to pay money if they speak to the Prophet privately. Obviously, this was to prevent the people from wasting the time of the Holy Prophet. He has a life, he has a family, and people will be constantly knocking on his door, one after another. And then when they'll come, they'll just sit. You've asked your question, now leave. And they'll just hang around. Prophet has other things to get to. He's not going to go ahead and dedicate all the time for you. So the ayat was revealed. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha najaytumur rasula faqaddimu bayna yaday najwakum sadaqa. That all those who believe, mu'mineen are being addressed. If you're going to go ahead and have najwa with the Prophet, meeting, or you want to speak to him, faqaddimu bayna yaday najwakum sadaqa. Then pay him before you have this conversation with him. But then the very next ayah abolishes it. The next verse says, were you afraid that giving charity before your consultation with the Holy Prophet will make you poor? Okay. Because you thought of it that way, Allah will forgive you. He will remove this charity from you. From now on, you don't have to give this charity. So first, the law came in to stop people. When they learned the lesson, Allah abolished the law. But there's only one person who followed this law when it came into place, and that was Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. So in conclusion, the benefit of Bada is that people should know that their fate is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by changing their path and method, they're capable of changing their fate as well, although it's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, Allah has the knowledge of how we will make munajat and supplications to go ahead and change our fate and our destiny. Determining the time of the reappearance of Imam, as I mentioned before, is something which is condemned, and those who falsely try to give frame of time for Imam are those who are condemned by Masumin. There are other references in this area, which again, because I've taken majority of my time, there was other stuff that had to be mentioned about the signs of the reappearance. Last thing, and inshallah I'll conclude, that Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, he says, سمعته يقول يظهر في آخر الزمان واقتراب الساعة وهو شر الأزمنة. That in the time when the zuhur of Akhir al-Zaman will take place, and it will be the last of the hours, it will be the worst of the times. So be prepared for the worst of the times. If you think today, this is right now the worst of the times, according to Amirul Mu'mineen, the worst of the times are still on the horizon. And then Imam mentions some of the things that I'm afraid of mentioning, because it could be something that people might feel embarrassed of and take it personally, because things that Imam is addressing in that riwayat is directly what some of the things that we are constantly doing within our own communities. Imam Mahdi alayhi salatu wassalam, ajjallahu ta'ala faraju sharif, is the waris of the Fatihin and the victors of Mubahala. When the Christians came in front of the Holy Prophet, the Christians of Najran, and Rasulullah handed them their defeat, when he walked out with his closest family members, with Amir al-Mu'mineen, Janab al-Sayyida, and Imam Hassan and Hussein, the Christians realized that if you were to go ahead and debate with these people, and Tafsir al-Baydawi mentions this, that I see faces. Their Asqaf Azam said, if I see faces, if they ask for a mountain to move from its place, it will move. Therefore, don't debate with them. Don't do mubahala with them, or you'll be destroyed. So Prophet handed the first defeat to the Christians in that battle of Najran, in the battle of Mubahala. Of course, there was no bloodshed, but they were handed over their defeat. We see that the azamat of Deen Mubin Islam will be even further beyond that. And it will be manifested upon the Christians once again after Mubahala, when Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, will reappear, and the leader of the Christian world, Hazrat Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam, will reappear. And when Imam will say to him to go ahead and lead the prayer, Hazrat Isa will say, Taqaddam, you go ahead, O Imam, you have the right to lead. And when Imam Zamana proceeds and he leads the prayer, and the leader of the Christian world stands behind the leader of the Muslim world, the azamat of Islam will be once again manifested in front of the Christians. Imam Hussein also, throughout his struggles, there were a lot of Christians that you find in the story of Imam Hussein. Yazid's family, his mother, is, from the Christian world. There were a lot of non-Muslims in the court of Yazid. But the same Hussein who set out to give example and set example for Muslims, along the path, if there are Christians that come across, they change their faith. Even if Imam doesn't see them, they change their faith. How many examples do you see in Karbala? See the example of Wahab Kalbi. You see the example of the Rahib, in whose church the Qafila stopped so that they can keep the heads of Shuhada inside, so that those who were after it, they will not steal them. The Rahib converts right away. And even that Safir and that ambassador of Rome, that who came and who sat next to Yazid and who was witnessing all of these events. And he saw the atrocities that Yazid was committing, who saw right away that this is something which is going on, which is unacceptable. He questioned, "Oh Yazid, who is this man whose head you have in front of you?" He said, "He's a Khariji." He said, "What did he do?" First, he said he's the son of Ali, he's the son of Fatima, who is the daughter of the Holy Prophet. That man right away was shocked. He said, "What did he do?" He said, "Well, he came on the promises made by the people of Kufa, but they disobeyed and they did not pay attention. And he was left over there, and my deputy, my governor, Ibn Ziyad, went ahead and killed him." He said, "What was his mistake that he went ahead and killed him?" "Well, he stood up against my government." This is how you deal with the grandson of the Holy Prophet. When you read the Masaib of Sayyid al-Shuhada, when you read the Masaib in the court of Yazid, you find that Abu Mikhnaf, he also narrates in his book that when the head of the Jews was present over there, Ra'sul Ja'lut, he was present in that gathering himself, in that darbar. He said all of these things, what he saw in front of him, and he questioned Yazid for what he was doing. He said, "This Hussein, whose head you're striking with your stick, is the grandson of the Holy Prophet, connected to your Prophet with one wasita." He said, "I am from the descendants of Hazrat Dawood through 70 wasita, through 70 mediums and means. Still today, people do not hold their good or their joyous gatherings like weddings without my presence in it. They don't do anything important without my presence in it." And this is how you deal with the grandson of the Holy Prophet, who is related to him only with one wasita. That's how you deal with him. And then right away, this man also embraced the religion of Islam. Before he embraced the religion, when Yazid became furious after him scolding Yazid in this way, Yazid said, "Well, If it wasn't for the hadith of the Holy Prophet who said, Man adha mu'ahidan kuntu khasmuhu yawm al-qiyamah, that whoever shows anger toward Ahl Kitab or non-Muslim, I will be their enemy on the day of judgment. So I'm not going to touch you. I'll let you say whatever you want to say. After this, he embraced the religion. He said, Ashhadu. He turned toward the face of Imam, the head of Imam, and he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna jaddaka Muhammadan Rasulullah. He uttered these words. And as soon as he uttered these words, Yazid said, Faqad bara'na min dimmatik. That's it. You're no longer protected. You're no longer, your wujud is no longer wajib upon you to provide protection to you. Yazid goes ahead and kills him as well. When all of these atrocities were happening, our fourth Imam stands up and he wants to speak. Yazid said, who is this man? He said, this is Ali ibn Hussein. He said, wasn't Ali killed in Karbala? He said, no, this is the other Ali who was sick in Karbala, and therefore he's still alive. Yazid said, go ahead and hit him and kill him because I don't want any of the family members to be alive. This is the point where Janab Zainab, who had shown the leadership, Sharikatul Hussein up until this point, it stands up to protect the imamat. Look at the role of Janab Zainab. She stands up, becomes the shield. She said, oh Yazid, have you not killed enough people? Has the blood or enough blood have been shed thus far that you have to kill more? What is up with you? This is not going to happen as long as Zainab is alive. When Yazid heard these words, he said to his people, go ahead and strike this lady who's protecting Ali ibn Hussein. Fidla was present over there. She comes forward and she says, oh Yazid, before you think about striking my Shahzadi, you have to go through me. And Fizza was able to spot all of these people from Habsha who were the guards over there. She said, pointing towards them, addressing them, what is wrong with your ghayrat that you see? When as soon as Fizza had said this, Yazid said, strike Fizza as well. She said, what is wrong with your ghayrat that you see? There's a lady amongst the enemies from your place, from your town, from your city, and now she's being attacked and you don't do anything about it. The men who were standing there, these Africans, these people from Abyssinia, they drew their swords and they said, oh Yazid, if anyone is struck Fidda, we will go ahead and cause bloodshed over here. Yazid became scared. He said, hold your thoughts. He said, spare Fidda, spare Zainab, spare Ali ibn Hussein. At that moment, the reciters say that how would Zainab bear this? She would look towards Medina. She would face towards Najaf and she would say, oh my father. In Medina, she would say, oh my grandfather. There are people who are ready to defend our Kanis Fizza, but there isn't anyone to stand up for our defense. Ala lanatullah al-qawm al-zalimin. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إن لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Allah, we've committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Allah, give us the tawfiq and ability to follow the commands and the teachings of Masumin alayhim salatu wassalam. Allah, give us the ability to become the true followers and the ones who are waiting. The Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraju Sharif. Allah, hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam. Make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhiru da'wana. And alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
अब हर एक गाम पे करती रही बुका काश रन से लौट के आ जाता बावफा سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا
اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا
ہوتے نہ ہم اسیر نہ چھنتی میری رضا
اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا
ستم نہ ہوتی شاہ مشرقن پر پلتا نہ میں کا خنجر حسین پر تیغ ستم سے کٹتا نہ سوکھا ہوا گلا
اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا
بالوں میں خاک ڈال کے روتے نہ مصطفیٰ اپنی لوحد کو چھوڑ کے آتے نہ کربلا بکھرا کے بال رن میں نہ یوں روتی سیدہ
اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا
ظالم نہ یوں رولاتے شاہ مشرقن کو اکبر کا دھاگ ملتا نہ بھائی حسین کو برچی سے مرتا نہ لیلا کا لاڈلا
اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا
ہوتا نہ ظلم ایسے تن پاش پاش پر دور نہ ایسے دوڑتے قاسم کی لاش پر پامال رن میں ہوتا نہ شبر پامیلا کا
اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا
یہ ظلم ہوتے آنکھوں سے دیکھا رباب نے اور ملکہ تیر وزنی کا اصغر کے وزن سے بے شیر پر وہ تیر چلا تھا نہ حرملا
اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جا تابا وفا
نہ یوں خرام نہ ہوتی ستم کی شام ہوتا نہ ایسے
جاتا با وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جاتا با وفا
پانی کے پاس رہ کے بھی رہتے نہ تشنا کام لگتے نہ یوں تماچ سکینہ کو گان کام کانوں سے چنتے نہ گور اس کے اشکیا
اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جاتا با وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جاتا با وفا
ہوتی ہے جب حسین کی مجلس کہیں بپا ہر دم سفیر و نور علی کی ہے یہ دعا وہاں پر یہ جا کے سرداشت کربلا
اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ کے آ جاتا با وفا اے کاش رنگ سے لوٹ یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
Okay, go ahead.
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, چہلم کے لیے بھیا آئی ہے تیری زینب چہلم کے لیے بھیا آئی ہے تیری زینب اے میرے بھائی حسین اے میرے بھائی حسین بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے جاؤں گی اب مدینہ جاؤں گی اب مدینہ چلوں تیرا منا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کدی بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کدی بچا کے معلوم ہے یہ تم کو زینب اجڑ چکی ہے لیکن تیری شہادت گھر گھر پہنچ گئی ہے شاباش دو بہن کو شاباش دو بہن کو بھیا گلے لگا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کدی بچا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کدی بچا کے بھیا تمہاری زینب اب وہ نہیں رہی ہے پہچان لوگے مجھ کو حالت بدل گئی ہے چلتی ہے یہ ضعیفہ چلتی ہے یہ ضعیفہ بھائی کمر جھکا کے بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کدی بچا کے भैया मैं आ गई हूँ नाना कदी बचा के कैसे बताऊं भैया बाजार में जो गुजरी कहते थे सबके मारो ये है अली की बेटी बाबा के भी मैं बदले बाबा के भी मैं बदले सब लाई हूँ चुका के भैया मैं आ गई हूँ नाना कदी बचा के भैया मैं आ गई हूँ नाना कदी बचा के उम्मत ने तुझ पे भाई रोने कहा दिया है जी भर के मैंने तेरा बातों का किया है रोएगी आज ज़ैनब रोएगी आज ज़ैनब बसे ऐसा बिछा के भैया मैं आ गई हूँ नाना कदी बचा के भैया मैं आ गई हूँ नाना कदी बचा के घर जाके क्या करूँगी पहलू में ही सुला लो अकबर से कह के मुझको गुर्बत की याद ला दो मालिक हो तुम तो भाई मालिक हो तुम तो भाई जागीर करबला के भैया मैं आ गई हूँ नाना कदी बचा के भैया मैं आ गई हूँ नाना कदी बचा के ये कह के तकल्लो उठी अली की बेटी अब्बास की लहद पर पहुंचा दे मुझको कोई दिखला दूं बाबा को दिखला दूं बाबा को रस्सी के नील जाके भैया मैं आ गई हूँ नाना कदी बचा के भैया मैं आ गई हूँ नाना कदी बचा के
या हुसैन
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 या हुसैन come on
متوجہ زیارت السلام علیکہ یا ابا عبداللہ السلام علیکہ یا ابن رسول اللہ السلام علیکہ یا ابن امیر المومنین و ابن سید الوسین السلام علیکہ یا ابن فاطمۃ الزہرا سیدۃ النساء العالمین السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکہ یا غریب القربا سلطان یا ابو الحسن موسی رضا السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا صاحب العصر والزمان علمان علمان شریک القرآن امام الانس والجان عجل اللہ تعالی فرجت وسهل مخرجت وظہورت السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا ابو الفضل العباس ابن امیر المؤمنین وقاسم ابن حسن ومسلم ابن عقیر وحانی ابن عروہ وحبیب ابن مظاہر حر شہید ریائی السلام علیکم یا ساداتی ومالی جمیعا ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا حضرت مختار السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ سورہ فاتحہ تمام مومن اور مومنات